introduction session. So in every introduction, we would want to give a basic overview on what we call product development, go through the definition and see how it is structured. But I promised you, I have made it very, very simple. For non-technical people, you will see that it is very digestible. What is product development? We are going to read the definition of product development, and then we will go on the key words of product development. The product development is the creation of products with new or different characteristics that offer new or additional benefits to the customer. Okay? Now, this is a lot of English, but when we break it down, the first thing that you see is that we are talking about the creation. So it means that we have to create something, right? The second keyword comes with new. And the third one is different characteristics. It means that when we talk about product development, we have to bring something new. We have to bring a value addition, okay? We have to bring something different, okay? So, is the creation of product with new or different characteristics that offer new or different benefits. That's very important. So you are coming with new, different characteristics, and you are also offering new and additional benefits. There is always something new, something additional that you would want to bring on the table. You would want to bring to whom? To your customer. So when we talk about product development, I just would like all of us to agree that copying a product is not product development. You can copy a product, but you have to add something into it. If you want to copy water, sell water, you have to add something, add a flavor to the water, or add something. So you have to bring something new to your customer. That's what product development means. It can be anything, but it has to be new. It has to be additional benefits. Why should I buy your product? What is it giving to me? What is the addition, the value addition? This is very important to understand. I'm taking my time here because it's important to get this very, very right. Okay? Great. Now, how do we do that? We can do it. Product development can involve the modification of an existing product. You can have an existing product. You decide to modify it. Okay? Or you can decide to present it differently. Or you can decide to formulate it differently. So it's just bring something different once again. It can be an existing product, or it can be a brand new product, okay, that you are bringing on in the market because you want to satisfy new customers, new market, okay? So this is something that you are creating to bring it into the market. At the end of the day, we are doing all this. Why? Because we want the consumer and the shopper satisfaction. So you will see that this concept of consumer and shopper satisfaction is at the heart of product development. Once again, I'm taking my time because this is important to understand that when we talk about product development, we are targeting the consumer, we are targeting the shoppers, those who are going to buy our product, those who are going to consume our product. Okay? They are the heart of the product development. Okay? Good? So we move to the next slide. And the next slide will give us the process, an overview of the process. Okay? The process of the product development. Once again, you see, I put a lot of colors because I want it to be very pleasant. It's technical, but you won't see it because it's very colorful. Okay? We have 5 steps when it comes to product development. And in the next 3 sessions that I just mentioned, we'll go into the details of every step. For today, we'll just go into an overview of this process. Okay? Before we go into any overview, look at what I just mentioned. Who is in the heart of it? Consumers and shoppers. They are in the heart of the process. They are the one we are targeting. They are our focus. Okay, that's why they are in the middle. And you will see why. They are in the beginning and they are at the end. They are in the middle, they are everywhere. Consumers and shoppers. Now, you might wonder, why are we talking about consumer and why are we talking about shoppers? Why are we differentiating between consumers and shoppers? Okay? The difference between a consumer and a shopper is the difference between a mother that is going to buy a toy for his son. Let's assume you have a son and you are going to buy a toy for this son. The mother will be the shopper because she will go to the shop to buy the toy, and the son is the consumer because he's the one who's going to use the product. If we take another example, we can talk about baby milk. You know, there is this milk that we give to baby at a certain age. Who is going to buy it? It's the mother, it's the parent who is going to buy it. The baby cannot go and buy it, right? The mother is actually the shopper, and the baby is the consumer. Okay? So this is important to understand that there is a difference. The reason why we are making the difference between the consumer and the shopper is that when we talk about marketing, the strategy is different. When you want to address the consumer, it is different from the strategy you put in place to address the shopper. It's a different strategy because one will consume it and one will buy it. Okay? So if you want the mother to buy the toy, you have to put a strategy for her to buy it. If you want the son to consume, to use the toy, you have to put a different strategy in place. So that's why we are differentiating between consumer and shopper. But the most important point here is that they are in the middle of this process. And being in the middle of the process means that they are, if we don't have them, we cannot go through this product development process. If you don't have consumers, if you don't have shoppers, you cannot go through this process. Okay? So, in the next slide, in the coming slides, what we are going to do, we'll look at the steps, the 5 steps that you see here, each one of them. The first being idea and concept. The second being development trials. Third, production. Fourth, launch. And fifth, post-evaluation. So we'll go through these 5 steps, and once again, it is an overview. And during the next session, we'll dig more into each step. In order to do that, in order to dig into the step, in order to talk about those steps, I would like us to use an example because, you know, when we are talking about theory, it's always important to make it practical somehow in our minds so that it will work more. So I would like us to use the example of introduction of new flavor of existing biscuits. Let's assume that you have a business that is already producing biscuits. You see those biscuits that you see on the left. You are producing those ones. You have vanilla, you have chocolate. Now, in your product development process, you want to introduce new flavor. Let's assume that you want to introduce strawberry flavor. Okay? This is the example we are going to use throughout this session so that we can make it practical. So anytime we are talking about one step, we'll refer to our biscuits. Okay? New flavor. So let's start with the first step, which is the idea and concept. So you have seen that in our process, idea and concept is the first one that we start with. Idea and concept. Okay? the first thing that we are starting with is to identify an opportunity. And we just mentioned what the opportunity is. You are a business making vanilla biscuits. You want to now create a new flavor, which is strawberry. Okay? So you are actually identifying this as an opportunity. The opportunity is what? Is to create a new flavor, which is strawberry flavor. Okay? So, where can this come from? This is important also, because people should know where they can get this information from, right? Where can this opportunity come from? Because you don't sit only in your salon and you say, look, I want to do new flavor. It should come from somewhere, right? The first point where it can come from is from the consumer and the shopper's insight. Consumers and shoppers, they have needs. They've been eating your vanilla biscuits maybe for 10 years, and they say, look, we want something different. This is their insight. Their insight is that, look, we want something different. This is an insight, right? They are telling you, you are giving us, you are supplying us with biscuits, vanilla biscuits. Now we would like something different. This is their insight. So if you know any business that is in product development, ask them to be very close to their consumer and to their shoppers so that they can get their insight. This is the first source where you can get an opportunity from. Second source is the market trend. Market trend, what does it mean? Is the evolution of the market. You are doing your biscuit vanilla for some years now, but you just realized that the market has changed. People are no more interested into vanilla. They want very exotic flavors. They want something different. Maybe they want passion fruit or they want strawberry, as I mentioned. This is the trend of the market. So as a business owner, you need to know the trend of the market. What is the market demanding? What is the trend? What are the new things that are happening? Right? The last point where it can come from is a market analysis. You can decide as a business owner to do a market analysis. You know your market, and you have decided to make an analysis to see, is it really working, these vanilla biscuits? Do people want something different? Do they want strawberry? Do they want passion fruit? Do they want something else? Okay? We are going to develop what we call a concept and to develop a prototype. What does it mean? The concept is just something much more detailed. It's the idea that you've had, but you want to go more into the details. You want to formalize it. You want to say why you are doing that. Because everybody can have ideas of creation, but it's not everybody that are going to formalize it. You understand? Once you start to formalize it, you are going into the concept. Okay? So this is very important. Idea, concept. Concept is much more detailed, much more. And this is where you are going to say everything about the final product. It is very preliminary, but still, because you know the business, your business, because you know what you want, you have some ideas about what you want. Now, let's go to the prototype. The prototype basically is something that you want to materialize what you have in mind. Let's assume you say, I want to make strawberry biscuits. The prototype is nothing complicated. Maybe if you already have the equipment to make your strawberry your biscuits, you can add the flavors to get the strawberries. But if you don't even have the equipment, you can go into your kitchen and just make something that is close to what you want. This is what we call a prototype. Because the reason why it's important is that when you have a concept, it's a document, right? You can come and say, submit to anybody, look, this is the document, I have formalized what I want, but the person might want to touch something, right? And this is important, and that is where it is important to have the prototype. Okay? This is what we call a prototype. Sometimes it is kitchen-made. Okay? The last point is what? Is sensory evaluation. Sensory evaluation, don't be scared, it's nothing complicated. It is just for you to taste and to test the product the prototype that you have made. Maybe you have a group of friends that you just invite and you tell them, look guys, I have this idea of creating a new flavor of my biscuits. Just sit in my salon and tell me what you think about it. And they will tell you, look, I like the taste. This one will tell you, no, I don't really like. This other one will tell you, look, I don't like how it looks. They will give you their feedback. Because this will also help you to fine-tune even the concept that you are writing down. Okay? We are at the first stage of the product development. Don't forget that. Idea and concept. You have an idea. You want to translate it into a concept, formalize it. You want to materialize it into a prototype. Okay? This is where we are. And now you just ask some few people to give them their feedback on the prototype you have made. Good? The last point here is to evaluate the soundness of what you want to do. Because sometimes we've had very nice ideas, but it doesn't bring much in terms of business. Why should I develop a new flavor if it doesn't bring me more money? Why? If it doesn't increase my sales, if it doesn't satisfy my consumers. So you would want to evaluate a business soundness. And that is where you go to a finance guy and ask him, look, please come and help me here. Let's see, do I need new investment? Am I going to need to buy a new oven, for example, for my biscuits? Do I need to buy new equipment? Do I need, you just, at a preliminary stage, have an idea or ask a financial guy to work with you on the financial aspects, okay? They'll be looking at the margin that you might make, you know, all those financial aspects that they know, they are going to make it in this stage. And the reason why also it is important is that if you are going to be supported by an organization, any organization will ask you about the financials, any. You can have an idea, a concept, a prototype, but if you don't bring the financials along, they will say, no, does it financially make sense? So this, you have to do it in this step. Okay? Great. So this is the step number 1, idea and concept. Preliminary step, number 1 step. Good. Idea and concept. We are going to move to the next step, which is development trials. This is step number 2. And you will see that I have 5 slides on this because this is the biggest step. This is usually the step that people miss, and this is why the reason why sometimes we fail when it comes to product development. This is very important, this step. And that is why I'm taking my time in 5 slides to go through with you. Okay? So in this step of development and trials, what are we doing? The number 1 is we want to develop a full consumer experience. What does it mean? It means that, don't forget, I have an idea, I have a concept. I've now looked at the financials, but now we want to make it a bit more practical. What we mean by develop a full consumer experience is that what is the consumer is going to get from this? What is he getting from this? Like, touch, what is he going to touch? Okay? Full consumer experience. Let's assume I am the consumer. You want to give me what I am going to get at the end of your development. Okay? And it is in this stage that we are looking at the packaging. What is the packaging of a product? I don't know if everyone can see me here. The packaging is any material that is meant to protect a product. any material meant to protect a product is called a packaging material. Now, you may wonder, to protect from what? To protect from anything from the outside. It can be bacteria, it can be dust, it can be humidity, it can be whatever can spoil your product. You are trying to protect your product from it. This is called packaging. It's basically what you touch, the packaging. Okay? Now, packaging material can be primary packaging material. It is the first that touches the product. In this example, this is the primary packaging material. Because when you open this, you get the product. Primary, this is what you touch. Okay? It can be secondary, like this one. It will help you sometimes on the storage. It will help you sometimes on the shelf, on the presentation as well. It can be even tertiary. It will help you on the logistics. Packaging, you can get primary, secondary, tertiary. That's packaging. You can also get what we call individual packaging. Individual packaging means one product, one packaging, like this bottle of water. Individual packaging. If you have several products into one packaging, it is a bulk. It is something different. You can have an individual packaging. When it comes to packaging material, you have different types. I just listed here a few. You can have plastic, you can have carton, you can have aluminum, you can have any type of packaging material. What is important is that it should protect the product. Protection is key when it comes to packaging materials. That's packaging. The second one that I wanted to talk about is what we call the labeling. The labeling here, you read, it is the printed required information affixed to the product. Why did we underline required? Because when it comes to labeling, there are some rules that must be followed. You cannot just, especially in food industry or in food production, you cannot just produce your food and just send it there. There are some required information that must be on the labeling. It is required because there is an organization that is globally recognized. It is called Codex Alimentarius. This organization is globally recognized. It's a commission. They are just people like us. They sit together and they create standards. They have created a labeling standard that is supposed to be followed by every country that has ratified to this commission. And guess what? Afghanistan is part of it. If you go to Google, you open the list of people who are ratified to the Codex, Afghanistan is the first one. Yes. So it is very important to know that labeling is a requirement. It is important, especially when you want to export. There are some requirements that you need, especially food products, to put on your label. And this, again, during the next session, we'll go into the details to know what are those requirements. The last point is claims. As you can see here, claims is a voluntary statement made on labels or on adverts. You know, you have the TV adverts. Sometimes you can decide to put a voluntary statement like fat-free, sugar-free, 100% natural. You can put whole grain. It is voluntary. You decide to put it there or not. The problem is not a problem, but the thing is, once you decide to put it there, you need to make sure that you respect it. You cannot say fat-free just because you want to say fat-free. If it is fat-free, it has to be fat-free into your product. If you want people to recognize your product as fat-free or sugar-free or whatever free or 100% natural, there are some requirements that you must follow. And these are requirements that are known globally. And this is very important. This is if you decide to put it. Once again, don't forget that this is voluntary. You decide or not to put it on it. Now, once you have developed the full consumer experience, we go to the next point, which is the recipe. Don't forget that we are trying to develop our strawberry biscuits. So recipe, what is a recipe? It is just a set of instructions for preparing a product. I'm sure every woman knows what a recipe is. I'm sure even the man, you know. You can go to Google and you ask a recipe for bread or whatever. You will find it. So recipe is a set of instructions. It will tell you the ingredients that you should put there, the quantity of the ingredients. It will tell you the sequence in which you are supposed to put it. Because if you want to make, let's say you want to make a curry, you cannot just put everything together. There is a sequence, okay, that you must follow. Just as our biscuits, if you want to make strawberry biscuits, we cannot just put everything in a pan, just wait and it will happen. No, there is a recipe. There is a sequence of activities that you must do, and ingredients in terms of quantity. It has to be very, very well designed. And what is important in recipe when it comes to food production is that it has to be easily repeatable. Anybody should be able to repeat it. Anybody. When you read it, you should be able to repeat it. That's the recipe. It should not be something complicated. Okay? It has to be add this, put this, heat to, you know, something very easy. That's the recipe. And in this stage, you are now developing your recipe. Don't forget, you have this idea. You have made your prototype at home, just a small one. But now you are going into the development. You are going to develop a recipe to say, okay, this is what I want, so let me develop the recipe. Good? Once you develop your recipe, what are you going to do? You are supposed to confirm whether what you want to do is feasible, operational. This part also is very important. Sometimes we miss it. What does that mean? Operationally is that first we need to see if what I am trying to make will not harm people. People's safety. You know, sometimes you are in industries where you have maybe 100 workers. If you introduce a new process that are going to harm them, all of them, the following day they are on sick leave, who is going to produce your product? You need to make sure that the process you are putting in place is not harmful to people. If you introduce a new material, you may need to see if this material is not harmful. Maybe, you know, it has some allergy, and your workers, they will use it and they will get some allergies, and the following day they will not come, and nobody is there to produce. Or maybe you are introducing a new equipment, and this equipment is going to, you know, set into fire in the next hour. That's not the idea. It has to be harm-free for people to be able to work with. People's safety. This sometimes we forget it, but it's important. Just have an idea about whether this, what I want to put in place, is not going to harm people. The equipment that you want to introduce, you may need some equipment to produce our new biscuits. Maybe we don't have this equipment. Even though I was doing vanilla biscuits, maybe I need a new equipment for my strawberry biscuits. Who knows? I need to get the proper equipment to make what I want. And this, if you are a business woman or man, you need to go to the technical people and tell them, look, this is what I want to do. What equipment do you think I should use? Which one is much more fit for what I want to do? Okay? And we come to this word that people sometimes don't like to hear, but it's not a big deal. You read HACCP, but we call it HACCP. You know, some people tell me, why do you say it HACCP? It's HACCP. Because HACCP is too complicated to say. That's why we say HACCP. Okay? HACCP is a technical word, I agree, but it is nothing to be scared about. it is very easy to understand. And when we will go into the details of this step, I will try to break it down into very easy language so that you understand what it means. But basically, what does HACCP do? HACCP, or HACCP, is an approach, okay, that is recognized everywhere in this world, which will help you prevent food safety issues. Let's assume you have food production, you want to make your biscuits. HACCP is the tool that will make sure that whenever someone eats your biscuits, the person will not be sick because the person eats your biscuits. Food safety, HACCP is the tool that will help you get 100% food safety. Food safety means anybody eating your product will not be sick, will not be harmed from eating your product. I'm trying to make it very simple. It's not difficult. It is a tool to help you achieve 100% food safety. And food safety is what? Food safety is anybody consuming, eating your product, because it is a food product, the person will not be harmed from eating your product. So we'll go more into the details in the next session. This is just an introduction. And lastly, in this step, when you are still verifying the technical feasibility, you would want to check if you have any regulatory requirement. What does that mean? I am doing a new strawberry biscuit, and I want to sell it in Afghanistan, I want to sell it in Pakistan. Sometimes maybe I would want to export it in Europe. Regulatory requirement at this stage means that before I do anything, I need to check in the country where I am going to sell my product, are there any laws, any regulatory requirements? Maybe in Europe, there are some ingredients that you cannot put in biscuits. Maybe in Pakistan, there are some that you cannot. Maybe in India or in any country where you are going to sell your product, you may find some regulatory requirements. In the part of the world where I am coming from, because I'm coming from Senegal in Africa, you will not find that much regulatory requirement. You will not find that much. But there are some countries where it is plenty. If you want to make a food product, if you want to sell a food product there, you need to be, 100% complying with those requirements. Otherwise, you cannot sell it in their country. Okay? And it is in that stage that you are going to check whether there are any regulatory requirement in the country where you are going to sell it for you to be able to sell it. Because it will be very unfortunate that you make your product, you do everything, and you want to sell it, and they will tell you, no, this one cannot enter our country. So before you do anything at this stage, development stage, you need to check this. Okay? So, after you have done this, you are going to perform some trials. Remember, you have now developed your recipe. It is very clear. You know what kind of equipment you need. You know the regulatory requirements. You know everything. You are going to perform some trials. And that is why in this step, you have what we call trials. It is development/trials. Okay? So you are going to perform some trials. Trials means you are going to actually produce what you want to produce with the taking into consideration everything, your regulatory requirement, your recipe, everything, your packaging, everything. Okay? So, once you have done that, you have to go through what we call a consumer test. In food, it is very important to do a consumer test. Once you have performed your trials, you need to do a consumer test. Again, I'm not requesting that you do, those kind of big consumer tests where you invite 100 people. No, you can just do something very easy. What do you want to do here? What do you want to achieve? You want to adjust your recipe based on consumer feedback. You remember, we said consumer is in the heart of this process. So you need their feedback to adjust your recipe, because maybe you are doing a recipe that nobody wants. Normally, if you get the insight, the right insight, you should be, somewhere very close to what they want. But sometimes you may miss it. Sometimes you want to do a recipe, but nobody likes it. I can give you an example. I was supposed to introduce a new milk product in Ghana. Ghana is somewhere in West Africa, a country. And we were asked to develop a strawberry milk. And I will always remember the first session of consumer test. We had 100 consumers in a room. And we went through all these steps that I mentioned. And we came to consumer test. We were so proud, all of us, with our product, our new milk, strawberry. So I gave it to the consumer for him to test. And I remember that this consumer just did this. And I was hurt, because we took so many time to develop this product, and they did not like it. And this gesture that they made was meaning that they did not like what we did. So they gave us the feedback that this product that you have made, even though you went all this process, we need some kind of adjustment. So we use this consumer test to adjust our recipe. At the third test, we were able to get what they wanted. And sometimes it's a matter of sugar, more sugar. It's a matter of the type of flavor that you use. Sometimes it's even the temperature in which you give it to them. It's so many aspects that can be involved, and that is why it's important to go through a consumer test. Again, I'm not asking anything big, not 100 people, but at least you get 10 people to give you feedback on the final product that you have made. Okay? So once you adjust the recipe, now you have to lock it. Lock the recipe means that this is the final recipe. I'm not going to touch it. The next point at this stage is very important when it comes to food production. It is the shelf life. Shelf life is sometimes the date that you see in every food product, most of them, I hope, should have what we call shelf life, expiry date, best before. It is a global requirement. You cannot have a food product without that. In some countries, there are some food products that are exempted, some of them, in some countries, not in all. Like salt, sugar, in some countries, you don't need to. But most of the country, you need to. Anytime you do food, you have to say, what is the shelf life? And if you read, shelf life is the length of time of which an item remains usable, fit for consumption, or sellable. This is a shelf life of a product. It is what you see, expiry date. Sometimes you see any food, you can just have a look at the ones that are around you. Not only the food, sometimes even other items will see expiry date on it. Okay? It means that by this date, you should consume it. You should not sell it after this date. And it is not fit for consumption after this date. And you need to have it in food production, because food is something that when it goes into your stomach, it doesn't come back. So you need to make sure whatever you put there is safe. Okay? Shelf life. You may want at this stage to define your shelf life. And when we will go through this process, I will let you know what are the tools that we have to define a shelf life. It's very easy. Very easy to define a shelf life of a product. Sometimes you go to a similar product to see what are the shelf life that they are giving. If it is yogurt, usually it's 21 days. If it is sterilized milk, usually it's some months. It really depends. But sometimes you can even make your own tests to define your shelf life. And we'll go into those details later. Okay? In the last slide of the development, you remember I told you that this is the biggest step, and that is why we are spending time on it. You are going to ensure readiness to produce. Now you have done everything. You have done checked your equipment. You have locked your recipe. You have defined your packaging. You have everything ready. You are going to do what we call a first and a second batch. Why do you do that? Because this is going to be your baseline. This is always what you are going to refer to as a baseline, as a reference. First and second batch. You make it, you put it aside as a baseline. This is what I want. Okay? You put it aside. You ensure what we call process capability. It is a big word, but it is not complicated. It is basically, you have defined some requirements, and you want to make sure that the process, the production you are doing, will comply with those requirements. As an example, in your process, you can say, for my biscuits, I want, for example, to achieve moisture is not a complicated word, moisture of this amount, okay? So process capability means that your process should be able to give you always that moisture, humidity, moisture, okay? Or you say process capability, I want a quantity of sugar of this amount, the process should give you always the same quantity. That's called process capability. It's not complicated at all, okay? The last point here is process efficiency. And here I may pause for a moment because there is no point of doing a business, a new product, if it is not efficient. If you have a lot of waste, why should you do that? If to produce 1 kilo of a product, you are wasting 10 kilos, why should you do that? The process should be efficient. You need to reduce whatever waste it is. And process efficiency is when you are currently trying to make sure that the process is efficient. Even if you have waste, how can you transform those wastes, put it back into the process? It's possible. There are ways to do it. Okay? The last point in the development and trial, you remember I told you you have the first and the second batch. Usually what we do, we use it to do what we call product registration. In some countries, if you want to sell a new product, you have to register this product. I put it here because this is important. You might not have this process here in Afghanistan well respected, but it is something that is very important. Sometimes this registration number, you will find it on the product, or sometimes they just give you a certificate, as you see there, to tell you, yes, your product is good, you can start selling it in our country. Registration of the product in the country where you are going to sell it. It's important. It will help you when you start selling not to be stopped by the customs or anybody. Okay? Good. So this is the last step, the last point of the development step. You remember we are still on the step number 2. The rest will go very fast. But I have really taken a lot of time on the step number 1 and number 2 because from the discussion that we had last time, we were told that these are some areas where we are a bit weak. Okay, so it's important that we get it right. Remember, idea and concept. You have an idea, you formalize it into a concept, you materialize it into a prototype. You go into the development step. The development step is where you make sure that if you start your actual production, you will not have any problem. That's the development step. You are making trials, you are making consumer tests, you are checking the requirements. That's the big step, development step. So you should take your time in the development step. So the next step that we are looking at is what we call the production. It's actually the actual steps where you do what you say you are going to do. Okay? It is the production step. So in this production step, what are you doing? Number 1, you want to produce based on the agreed recipe. Remember we said at the development step that you are going to perform trials, you are going to make consumer tests, you are going to adjust your recipe and then lock your recipe. This is very important. So at this stage of production stage, you are going to produce with the recipe that you have locked, not a new recipe. It's not time to change anything. You go by the recipe that you have locked. Okay? So once you have done that, there are some requirements that you should follow, especially in the food production. And it is very important for everyone in this session to remember that we are focusing on food because the first stage of this activity is to be focused on food. Okay? So we are talking about food. In the food industry, as you see here, there are certain practices that we call good manufacturing practices. And those practices are very important to respect. If you don't respect those good manufacturing practices, you will end up in crisis. You'll end up in issues. You'll end up in recalls. You'll end up with, people getting sick when they eat your products. So the good manufacturing practices are, there are so many, but I have just tried to list here the ones that I think are very important for us. Now, the good manufacturing practices, the number one that you want to follow or to respect is the people's safety, personal safety. I will never say it enough. Remember, I told you that if you want to make a new product, this new product is supposed to be made by people, by workers. If those workers are not safe, if they are harmed by the equipment that you bring or by the type of product that you bring, you'll have nobody to do the actual production. So ensuring people's safety is very key. And people's safety, what does it mean? It's different from food safety. People's safety is the people who are making the product should be safe when they are making the product. Food safety is different. Food safety is people who are eating your product should be safe. So here what we are talking about, the first one, is to ensure that people who are making the product are safe so that the following day they can come and make the product. The following day they will come. If they are not safe, they will get sick leave and you have nobody to do the actual job. That is very important, people's safety. Second point is people hygiene. And here, let me pause for a moment. The minimum hygiene in food industry is to have a proper hand wash procedure. Hand wash. There is a procedure to hand wash. We'll see it when we will dig into that process. You just don't go, put some soap, rub it, and that's it. There is a procedure to follow when you want to wash your hands effectively. And this is the minimum you should find in food industry. Because hand is the first element that brings contamination in food. First, hand. And you may all know why, because we use our hand to shake the hands of others. We use our hands in toilets. We use our hands to touch anything. So the first vector of contamination in food industry is hand. Still in personal hygiene, you may need to cover your hair. This is the minimum. Why? Because, when you make products, the hair might be in contact with the product that you are making. Do you want to eat a food where you find hair? Do you want to eat food or do you want to eat hair? Nobody wants to find hair in his food product. If I want to eat hair, I will go and order hair. I will not go and order food, right? So it's important to cover our hair. Overcoat, to put something on top of us. Why? Because sometimes the type of clothes that we have are loose. Sometimes you can get piece of the clothes going into the machine. You get it. I have spent 15 years in the food industry and I can tell you that this happens. And sometimes the workers, this will happen and they will not tell you that it happened because they are scared, because they don't want to be fired. So maybe part of the clothes is gone into the product and you will not know. It happens. So you may want to put something, an overcoat, on top of whatever clothes people are having. And this overcoat should be something that will not be looped into the product or into the equipment or into the product. Again, this is minimum that I have put here. Okay? Cleaning plan. Cleaning plan in food production also is you need to have a cleaning plan. You cannot have a clean food production where you clean when you see that it is dirty. No. You clean according to a plan. You say every Monday I will clean this part. Every Tuesday I will clean this part. Toilets I will clean every day. Because if the toilets are dirty, once again, people will go there, they will get contaminated, they will come and contaminate your product. Cleaning plan. Pest management. What is pest management? Pest is whatever from cockroach, whatever that you find, those small animals that you find in food production, in food industry, because they are also interested to come and eat whatever you are making. But they are not welcome, right? So pest management is important because, this biscuit, if I eat it and I find a piece of cockroach inside, I'm not sure I will buy it again. But it happens. It does happen. Because they don't have a proper pest management. Pests are those animals that come into we all know they are in our houses, sometimes in our kitchen. Because they also want to eat something. It's natural. But we don't want it in food industry. HACCP plan, you remember HACCP, what we discussed is what is going to help you make sure that your food is safe for consumption. And this HACCP plan will tell you what are the checks that you need to put in place. Coming back to our biscuits, HACCP plan will tell you, for example, that once you have produced the biscuits, you don't want anybody to touch it, because once you produce it, you put it in the oven. After the oven, that's where contamination can happen. Because in the oven, normally the oven will kill everything, because it's heat treatment. But after the oven, if someone, for example, goes into the toilet and come and touch it, you might have contamination. So HACCP will tell you, please, don't let them touch it after the oven. Those kind of things. Okay? Operational checks. What is operational checks? For example, temperature. When you want to make a biscuit, you need to make it at a certain temperature, otherwise you will not get the softness or you will not get the hardness that you want. So operational checks is whatever will help you to get the technical side of the product. Okay? That's the operational checks. Raw materials, packaging, product lab testing. I know that it's difficult in some part of the world, especially in where I am coming from, to have a lab in every food production, especially the small ones. But there are some minimums that needs to be done. Because if you want to make a biscuit with a flour, you cannot take any flour. You have to make sure that the flour that you are getting is safe, is free from any foreign bodies, is free from any contaminants. So the minimum is to test the raw material. If you cannot do it every day, at least do it like monitoring. You say every month, I will test it once to see if it is still okay. Okay? It is important to test the raw material, to know what am I getting. And it is also important to have consistency in where you are getting it from. If today you get it from China, tomorrow from Australia, the day after from Senegal, the day after from Mali, it's not consistent. So you may want to get consistency in the source of the raw material you are getting, so that you can ensure that whatever you are getting is the same, at least. Okay? Packaging materials. You will see in some example that I'm giving that sometimes the packaging material are what the source of the issues. You will get a packaging material, but it is contaminated already. So if whatever you put inside is contaminated, so you may want to test your packaging and see if there are some contamination in it. The final product that you are making, before you sell it, at least once, test what you are selling. Because, I mean, there are some requirements. We said it, in the country where you are selling your product, there are requirements. In Europe, there are some chemicals that should not be found in food. They don't want it. In some countries, like India, for example, there are some chemicals that are banned. You can't get it in their product. If they catch you with that, it's a big crisis. They will just stop your product from selling in their country. So you don't want to experience those kind of things because you are in new product development. So please, let's make these as a minimum. When we talk about food product testing, sometimes inline test means when you are producing, you are doing the test to make sure that whatever you are getting at the end is good. But you can also have final product tests to make sure that what you are getting is up to the requirement. Okay? And lastly, maintenance plan. Sometimes people forget about this. We just get equipment. We run until the equipment breaks down. It's like our car. Sometimes, just like me, I don't know anything about car. I just run the car until it breaks down and I keep it somewhere. You need to have a maintenance plan. Every 2 months, 3 months, you need to send it for servicing, to maintain it, to prevent it from breaking down. Maintenance plan is important. So these are some of the things that are part of good manufacturing practices. They are good. These are practices that you need to have in place. You understand? So this is it. Again, there are so many other things inside, but these are the main ones that you should know. Okay? Now, what we are going to see in the following slides, I just wanted us to have some little bit of fun in this session. We are going to see what can happen if you don't have good manufacturing practices. And you will see that there are some very fancy issues that can happen. First one, look at this. Piece of clothes in the burger. You are just introducing a new burger flavor. You are doing beef burger. You want to do chicken burger. And the first batch, you find this inside. How will the consumer react? Do you think this consumer is going to come back? No. Me, if I'm a consumer and I find this, I'm not coming back. You can say whatever you like. Sorry, madam, sorry. No, but I'm not coming back. It means that your process is not under control. And you remember I told you that sometimes it comes from the clothes of the workers. It means that there is something in the good manufacturing practice that did not work. Second example, these are biscuits, which I just found this in the US. In USA, there is a bacteria called Listeria. It's a very naughty bacteria. It's very bad, especially for pregnant women. This Listeria bacteria can lead to miscarriage on pregnant women. It's very, very strong. And sometimes it also can lead to stillbirth. You know, the newborn will be deaf at birth. So this Listeria is very bad, and they found it in USA in some biscuits. Probably because in good manufacturing practices there were some breaches. Okay? So it can happen in USA. The other one, you see, breakfast cereals. Let's just assume in the morning, you take your breakfast cereals, you pour it, you start eating, and you find this nice bulb. Where is it coming from? It's coming from poor maintenance. Because sometimes maybe the equipment was not maintained, the bolt and nuts were not tightened, and then it just blew into the product. Good manufacturing practices. And again, you don't want your consumer to face this, especially when it is new product development. When it is new, you are supposed to bring something good, and you bring both. I told you sometimes the packaging material is the source of the issue. Broken glass in yogurt. This yogurt, the packaging material is glass, But inside the yogurt, they found broken glasses. Why? Maybe because when they were producing the packaging materials, there were some glasses that were already there. So because of poor good manufacturing practices, they found pieces of glasses. And this product was recalled. What does it mean? Product recall. When you hear it, it means that they produce, they send it to the consumers, to the shop, everywhere, but they need to recall it because there is something very dangerous for the consumer. And this is very bad for the brand image. Very, very bad. I tell you, the big companies, they don't like product recall because after a product recall, you can see your sales will just drop like this. Okay? The last one, no, not the last one. In India, you might hear about this one. It was a big noise. Maggi. Maggi is a product from Nestle. Maggi noodles is one of the key products in India. Every Indian knows Maggi noodles. And it was banned in India for a year and a half. Why? Because there were some regulatory compliance issues. Banned. They don't joke there. You don't do what you're supposed to do. They just ban your product. This Nestle India, they saw their sales just going down like this. I cannot tell you the amount of money they lost. And some people were just, they just let them go home because there was nothing to do. They could not sell their product anymore. They could not produce anymore. This last one is in France. It is baby milk. And they found salmonella bacteria. It's another bacteria, type of bacteria that is very bad. This can kill you, actually, if you have salmonella and you don't treat it properly. If you eat it, it can actually kill you. So they found it into baby milk. Can you imagine the baby, how sensitive they are, finding salmonella in the baby milk? It was a big story, big story. And all these things are breaches into the good manufacturing practices. And that's why it's important to respect the good manufacturing practices. Whenever you are going to support businesses, please make sure that you have those big good manufacturing practices in place. Because it can close a business. Okay? Again, when we are going to, during the following sessions, I will share with you a checklist that you can use. When you are going to visit the businesses, you can take that checklist and see if the minimum good manufacturing practices are in place. If they are not in place, you can advise them. Or look, you need to have a maintenance plan. Or look, your people should have hair cover, at least. How much is hair cover? And it can help you, avoid all these issues. The next step that we are going to be looking at is the launch, the actual launch. You have now produced your product is ready after production. Now you want to launch it. To launch it means you want to make it public. You want to sell it. You want to send it to distributors. So what are you going to do first? You need to deliver it into agreed location. Why did I put this agreed location sometimes? Because when you are doing the development, in the development phase, you will actually define what are the locations that you are targeting. For example, in the development phase, you will say that, look, I'm going to create this strawberry flavor, but from consumer insight, I know that strawberry flavor will only work in Herat. I'm just giving an example. So at the launch phase, you have to deliver it in Herat, not somewhere else, because if you send it somewhere else, you are just going opposite what you wanted to do. You might want to try it somewhere else, but Herat should be your target, because this is what is in your concept brief. Okay? Because this is where it is supposed to work from the study that you made or from the consumer insight. Okay? Still in the launch, what you want to do is to make your product attractive. Attractive for everybody. Attractive for the distributors, the people who are going to distribute it. They need to get benefit from it. Retailers, you need to put some commercial gesture. You need to put some marketing support on it. for them to want to sell your product. The shoppers, the consumers, they should want to buy your product. So you may want to put some commercial and marketing support for this launch, for it to work, because you cannot just, I have done my strawberry, let me just put it there and see if it will work. By chance, it can work, but if you want it to work, you have to make noise about it. You have to make it attractive. Okay? So this is all about the launch step. The last step that we are going to be looking at is the post-evaluation. Sometimes people miss this one because after launch you start counting the dollars and you are so happy that you forgot to do this one. It is important to do the post-evaluation, because post-evaluation is actually where you are going to adjust your process. You are going to, whatever did not work, that's where you start adjusting. Post-evaluation. What do you do in the first one? You are going to evaluate your sales. Remember, you said you wanted to introduce this one. In the concept brief, you will say, oh, I want to achieve these quantities of units. I want to sell these quantities of units. In this phase, you need to check if you have actually sold those ones. Did it go? If it is like 100 units, did you sell 100 units? Or you sold 200 or 50 or 1? You have to evaluate your sales. Because if you did not sell what you say you wanted to sell, it means there is a problem. And you need to know and take the right action. Okay? Second one, you want to check if the production is efficient. I was just discussing with Mina, right? Mina. Yes. I was just discussing with her on the efficiency of production. Why is it important? Because if you have a new product in place, you want to get money from it. You don't want it to, just dig you down. You want to get it right. Wherever the waste is, you want to eliminate that waste. You want to minimize that waste. So during your production, you want to see where are the waste and you want to minimize those wastes. Okay? So check the efficiency of your production. The next point is to do what we call retail quality audit. What does it mean, retail quality audit? It is actually a tool that is going to help you get feedback from the retailers. Why is it important? Because the retailers are those who are in contact with your shoppers. So it's important to know exactly what is the feedback. Is my product easy to handle? Is my product easy to present? Easy for retail? Is it attractive? It's a tool that I'm going to share with you. It's an easy one. Anybody can use it. And you can share it with the businesses to go and check the quality of their retail. Okay? There is another tool that is called complaint handling system. What is it? We said it. Nothing is perfect in this world. Nothing. So you have a process. Sometimes there are some issues from it. Sometimes people consume the product and they are not happy about it. So you need to know what are their complaints. The consumer, you need to know whether he's happy when he's eating his biscuit. Is he happy? Or is he eating it, oh, this is bad. I need to know it. So you need to put something in place, a system in place to get those complaints back. We'll see it. It's a very easy tool as well that you can have in place. It's not costly. It's not. It's very easy. Shopper eye study. It is a tool that I want to share with you. It's just for the business to go around and observe. They will observe their own product, just like a shopper. Like, let's assume this is my product. I have produced it, and I will go in the store and I will observe it. And I will get feedback from this observation and take some action. Sometimes it's about how it is presented at the store. Sometimes it is about the color that we have used in the packaging. Maybe this pink does not work, or it's not attractive enough. So I want to do a study to be in the shoes of the shopper. Okay, it's a tool that I'm going to share with you when we will talk about this into detail. And the last one is what we call market research. Market research is actually a tool that can feed into the first step. You remember the first step, idea and concept? When you do market research, sometimes the results from the market research, you can use it to generate new ideas. Market research. And it will also help you fine-tune your product. Because in market research, you will get insight from the consumer, from the shopper. Again, these are tools that are very easy to use. You will all have this in a pack, so that when you go and visit the businesses, you can give them the choice. If they want to do post-evaluation, you can just tell them, look, what do you want? You want to do market research? This is the tool. Let me explain how it works. Okay? So, basically, this is it. The post-evaluation is the last one. In summary, when we talk about product development, there are 5 steps for effective product development. This is in summary, with a strong focus on consumer and shoppers. And you heard me, anytime I was talking about the step, consumer and shoppers were in the middle of that step. They're in the middle of everything. Okay? 5 steps, remember, very easy to remember: idea, concept, development, trial, production, launch, and post-evaluation. Okay? Yes. Now, in the next session, what is going to happen, before I hand over the floor to you, what is going to happen is that in the next session, the second session, we are going to go into the details of idea, concept, development, and trials. Those 2 steps, we'll go into the details of those 2 steps. Third session, good manufacturing practices. We'll go into the details. Last session, we'll look at launch and post-evaluation.